All right. Welcome back to another episode of the School of Weird. Today, I've got one of my good friends that I'm very excited about talking with today, somewhat selfishly, because I just absolutely love the topic. That's Finnian. Finnian, how are you?
I'm so good, Frankie, and I've been looking forward to this banter for a long time.
Yes. And this is not just any day, because it turns out me and now all of the viewers are going to get this first recorded view of your new book. This is your
Yeah,
first book, right?
first book, and I literally just got it in the mail. It comes out on June 18th, but here it is. It's pretty sexy. I think it
Yes.
looks pretty nice.
Yes, and by the time you see this, all the viewers, this book is going to already be on the market, and it'll be everywhere books are sold. I'm sure, right, Finian?
That's right, everywhere.
Okay, so this book is about intentionality, and you and I have had a lot of conversations and do a lot of work on how does this intentionality show up, not just in our personal lives, but also at work, which
Yeah.
obviously you can debate that our personal life or our lives are also at work. So I think you probably have some thoughts on this, but it's obviously the same person.
Yeah.
And trying to live more wholeheartedly, I think was something that you and I connected on, right? And this idea that like we are the same person, whether it's at work or whatever space that we're in. And so we shouldn't be like taking off a hat that focuses on intentionality because we're at work. In fact, we probably should be leaning into it because we're at this battleground of work. So tell us a little bit about how you came to this intentionality. Am I saying that right?
Intentionality. Intentionality. Yeah.
Intentionality. How did you get here in all the things I'm sure you've experienced in life? And now all of a sudden it's culminated this like hyper focus on intentionality. How'd you get here?
hmm Well, I want to riff off what you were just saying because I thought there was some absolute gold there. This idea that we can suddenly go into a workplace and be a different person, even if we wanted to, we actually can't because because we
Exactly.
are habitual beings and our subconscious determines 95+% of our daily behaviors and actions. So yes, consciously we may want something, but the program will always kick in. And there's one of the most dangerous sayings that is out there is, oh, don't take this personally, it's just business. Frankie,
Ah,
as
yeah.
I think business has been pretty personal for you over the years, hasn't it? Like that's why
Yes,
we
it
do
has.
what we do. We're passionate about it. So thinking that we are to create this separation between us isn't realistic. We are not robots, even though
Mm-hmm.
some organizations would love us to be, but we're definitely not. So for me, how I uncovered this was just enough life experience where I started seeing enough of patterns in my leadership where I would learn all these great things on how to lead people. And I'd want to do it. And then at certain stressful moments, other different behaviors would start
It
coming
would
out.
default back.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'd default
You
back.
default back to your factory settings. I
Yeah.
call that.
And I'd also see potential in so many team members. And potential has been one of my most dangerous things because the potential I'd see in them, yes, that they have that opportunity, but if they don't believe that they can have it, it doesn't matter how much I believe, their beliefs will always win. So I just started seeing enough of these
That's
situations
good.
where, oh, there's a misalignment. And then probably the other big piece was I worked with enough people because my first business was all about wealth management. And I worked with enough people who had created their vision for their life. And they said, oh, when I reach this number or when I achieve this amount of success, I'm going to feel great. I'm going to feel peace and joy. And
Mm-hmm.
time after time after time again,
Yep.
we would get there and suddenly they didn't feel that. The illusion
Yep.
came
I've been
crashing
there.
down. And that happened to me personally
Oh
as
yeah.
well.
When did that happen for you?
It happened when I was 7 years ago, 32 years old, and I had achieved my vision for my life. I was living in Beaver Creek, Colorado, skiing 100 days a year, financially independent, married to a woman I loved. And suddenly, the feeling that I hoped that would come didn't come. And then what would happen is the the to actually embrace that, it was too much. So then we started all my sabotaging behavior. And I just started starting more businesses, doing different things, distracting myself. And a series of events occurred, which resulted in loss of money, loss of like a father-in-law who died tragically, and then loss of my wife ultimately. And it was at that point where I went, okay,
Wow. This was 2017.
yeah,
You
2017, yeah.
you realize we both had the same thing going on at the same time. Did we? Did you know
Of
that?
course, we're brothers. That's what
Yeah.
happened.
I didn't know that till this moment, but yeah, intuitively you somehow knew
Yeah.
from your
Yeah.
your connection to the force.
Well, I also see the arc, Frankie. I know the arc that I'm on, and life is 7-year cycles. I can date that back
Yes.
from
Yes, of
literally a
course.
young age, and we're at a 7-year cycle where we blew everything up. We then had to go on our own journey, this sort of spiritual awakening, getting to know ourselves, and now we've crossed over into an expansive one again, where it's like we were
Yes.
contracting before, and now it's very
Yep.
expansive. So I see that in
Yes.
you. I feel that
Yes.
in you, actually.
I'm here for it. Keep going. Yes.
Yes. So now it's the golden years. Like I have a psychic medium who was always talking about just get to 39 and you've reached your golden years. Like whatever decision you make in the next 7 years will be everything for the rest of your life. If you have a child, if you get married, the financial wealth, all these things will be just there with you forever. And so I'm now in those golden years, and I've got a baby on the way. I've got a great partner. I've got
Yes.
this
Congrats.
expansive business, and it's fun again.
Dude, isn't that beautiful? And it's and what's wild is how the whole love you're weird thing came to me in 2017 when I was going through the same stuff, and it wasn't until just recently that I started even really talking about it. And that was part of my own journey of realizing just how powerful it is for us to be radically authentic, radically wholehearted, and be living with, as you say, intentionality.
Yes.
And getting to a point where nothing matters except these golden components that you talk about, right? So what makes them golden years is that you're focused on the golden components: family, relationships, being everything that I fully am capable of being, and most importantly, following a calling above following money.
Exactly. And that's the
Which
difference
brings us
this
to
time.
today.
Yeah. And that's the difference of this time is this one's sustainable.
Yes.
Before it wasn't sustainable. I kept kidding myself. I kept fantasizing about a future, but now all I am is in the present moment. And I love the different impacts I'm having. I love this book, but do I really care? No, because what I really care about is, am I living a peaceful, fulfilled, loving, joyful life? Am I having impact?
Yes.
Am I having quality relationships? And if I have those foundations now, then I'm open to more. I'm definitely open to it, but I don't need it. And that's the difference, where before I needed it. I don't need it.
And it's
now.
interesting though, because if you think about it, when you don't need it, that's actually what creates an environment where you get it.
Yes. Yeah.
When you don't need it is usually when you actually can get it. And more importantly, once you do get it, enjoy it or receive it.
Totally. And I've even noticed this in this book launch, Frankie. I'm in an organization called Entrepreneurs Organization. We have forums where we reflect every month.
Oh, that's EO.
We do a deep reflection. And I just did a deep dive yesterday because I started observing that I wasn't enjoying this process of the book launch. And I started doubting things, and I was questioning things. And I was really curious because I was like, where is this coming from? And I did a deep dive and exploration on it. And I knew it wasn't really about me. It wasn't because I wanted to be famous or anything like that. But the ego, as you go further on this path, the ego gets more and more cunning. And my ego found a way to grab me at a vulnerable time. It went that I had associated that what I want to do is have a lot of impact. I want to help a lot of people. I know if people read this book, their life's going to be transformed, and it's going to free them from what I went through. I don't want people to have to go through the same level of trauma, blowing up their life. I don't think you need to blow up your life in order to wake up. So it was all about impact. And then the ego went, okay, well, I'm going to associate impact with it's got to be a bestseller. It's got to be all these things. So suddenly I started having all this pressure on myself and this fear, and I created success in the business. The book was only the book launch, so this finite week. And I was just like, oh, this is not serving me. So last night I just went, you know what? I'm going to let that definition go. I don't care about that definition anymore. I'm focusing on if this book helps one person, brilliant. And then now, funnily enough, you know what's happened today? Positive things have been coming in, really good momentum. And I'm like, oh, how fascinating, because I'm letting go of the need of it again.
Now, how ironic is it that what you just told me probably is in your book in a couple spots, first of all. So you clearly have already experienced it and you already know it. And yet still, it's hard. You had to like re-find it in the moment. It's wild. And I find that like the best we can do is just get back to what we know the truth is a little faster. We always, every morning, I believe that humans wake up and we reset to default factory settings.
Yeah.
And I'm finally like not surprised by it anymore. Now I know it's going to happen. And so then it's like, okay, what can I do to take this day captive, right? Which is why we meditate and do what we do in the mornings and whatnot and do those practices. But it's amazing how, especially, and I think a lot of it comes down to things mattering too much to us. So when I say mattering, I don't mean like the mattering and belonging that us and all of our friends talk about, but like sometimes things just matter too much. And I feel like that first step, what I heard you say was letting go. I call it acceptance, but it's essentially the same thing of like the first step is essentially detaching from it.
Yeah. It's so funny you brought up about what's in my book. That was my awakening yesterday, my awareness. I suddenly reflected, someone shared something about, oh yeah, we prioritize goals too much. And I just went, oh wow. My whole book is a feelings first approach to living and leadership. The number one, there's 5 intentions, and the master key intention is prioritize feelings over outcomes. What was I doing? I was getting so focused on an outcome at the cost of the feelings. And I just went, oh, wow, I've succumbed to my own teaching. And that's the beauty of it. Like, I love being vulnerable of it. Like,
well, the plumber's pipes are always leaky. Yeah, exactly. The plumber's pipes are always leaky, man.
And that's what we're sharing what we need the help with the most. And it was just this awareness. Oh, that's right. So then I went back, okay, what do I want to feel during this book launch? I want to feel energized. I want to feel inspired. I want to feel impactful. So then I just go every day. I wake up in the morning, like you said, when we reset, I sit there before I remember who I am. I lie there and just go, okay, I want to feel these feelings. And I start visualizing myself through these feelings. And then as I'm in interactions, like I just had a meeting with our marketing team, and sometimes I get negative on these marketing meetings because I'm like, oh, why aren't they being a silver bullet? Why aren't they making magic? And instead I went, oh, what could I do to be impactful right now? Instead, I got them really excited about what we're doing. And I know now they're probably going to go and
do more.
Greater impact.
Yeah. And so you feel like the action is just consciously bringing your intention into each moment. That's the action.
Yeah, it really is. Well, the action is first you've got to set the intention of how you want to feel. Like that's what it is. We are feelings-based people. That's why do we want to have a big house? We want to feel secure. Why do we want to have a lot of money? We want to feel safe, impactful, whatever it is. We're always looking for a feeling. The outcomes
everything boils down to a feeling we're looking for.
So let's prioritize
So if you can get the feeling, you don't really need the other stuff.
Exactly. And
that's when you actually can get it.
Exactly, because then you're flexible, and also you have no idea. Like sometimes I'm in things right now, and I'm like, oh, this is so much better than any goal that I set. Like I this feeling that I wanted, I set the feeling, and then I was allowing how it could show up. But whether it's a small thing or a big thing, as long as I have the feeling, it doesn't really matter to me.
Okay, let me ask you this. How big in your framework, because this is pretty big for me, how big is sharing your energy, sharing the goodness you have, the light you have? How big is sharing it and giving it away in being able to sustain or continually recreate what you want from a feeling standpoint?
Yeah, thank you. So it's a big one. We are just energy. If you actually break down everything in Earth, what it comes down to is just energy. At its microform, that is like the energy. So we need to realize that energy attracts energy. What you give is what you'll get more of it back. So if we want love, so many people are like, why aren't I getting enough love? Go hug someone. Go be kind to someone and watch what will happen. Love will come back. The body can't tell the difference between giving love or receiving love. It's the same. It's the formula. And I had a coaching client the other day. He goes, I've been applying this thing where I'm like, I just keep wanting to give more love, but then I keep getting more and more love back, and I feel sort of guilty. Like, why am I getting so much love back? And I went, brother, that's the formula. Like, the more you give, the more you get back out. And when we live from that state, it just creates this state of abundance. And it's this idea that we can all win. The capitalistic society where we think, oh, if you get something, that means I don't have something, that's really
Right.
sad. And instead, like when you get a speaking gig, Frankie, I'm like, amazing. Like, yes,
Right.
what can I learn from you? And we build off each other's energy, and we know that there's so much to go around.
Yes.
And that's how we grow. And that's the beautiful about how we connect is through
yes,
sharing mentality.
But that's a choice. It really is a choice. Because you can look at the world, you can look at anything from the yin and yang balance, and it's good to, right? Because it's not like we're not in touch with the dark side, and it's the dark side that makes the light side so good.
Totally.
And what's wild about the work that we've done is that I don't know. You might not have to go to the bottoms or the crashes that you and I have been through to get to learn what we've learned. But I'm also not 100% sure that you can without some pain. I'm not 100% sure. Like the best I've come up with that you and I can do and this new book can do is to help people get there faster or maybe a little easier.
Yeah.
But all of life is about the yin and the yang. It's got to be both there.
Yeah. And catch themselves. What my whole idea is that I don't think you can get to the place where we got, where it's like, it's very traumatic and not everyone comes back from that place. It is one way of waking up where you're like, I've got to try another
I wouldn't
path
wish it on my worst enemy.
Yeah. But I believe you can catch it and identify, I'm going to that path. And that's where some awareness and having like other people share and reflect back to you, I think you can catch it, especially as we become more conscious. Because through the consciousness, we're one mind. And now I can start seeing, it's almost like, Frankie's tried out this scenario. I don't need to try out this path anymore because I've seen Frankie and I trust him. I'm going to go down this other path.
Yeah. And part of it is finding people that you trust. I mean, it's definitely interesting. I know for me, the more someone's been through pain, usually the more I trust them, especially if it's a pain that I've also gone through or I'm in the middle of.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of pain and the beauty, because a lot of times I think people look at the universe or they look at God and they're like, oh, how could a good natured energy source or whatever it is allow this to happen?
Yes.
And I run into that a lot because, as you know, I've sponsored hundreds of guys in addiction. And that's actually been an interesting journey for me of really working with people that are in this crazy desperation. And I work with them like all the time. I mean, I'm constantly still working with them, and it has become such an important source for me to like live off of, honestly, and then translate into all the other work I do. That feeds me more than any audience is going to feed me. And I've come to realize that recently. Like I really wanted the closest thing to what I have in that's not paid, it's anonymous, there's no power, there's no sex, there's no transfer other than spiritual energy is the only way I get paid. And when you can put yourself in positions like that, that's why we feel so damn good when we do things that are completely unconditional.
Totally.
That is the ultimate energy exchange. And I call it the limitless drug because I've gotten addicted to that. And so anyway, I've been excited. It's like, I'm going to do this same thing with the work we do as keynote speakers. And I will say that it's the closest comparison when you have a lot of people's energy mirroring back to you a positive light. There's almost nothing like it, but it's still not quite as powerful as that, only because like when there's another exchange, which is the money.
Yeah.
So there is still an exchange, but as far as if I'm going to do something for work that's not fully unconditional because of the money exchange, the best I've found is the calling you and I have.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things to touch on there. So one about the idea that people start going, "What, God, why could you be doing this?" And they start blaming God.
Yes.
It's our perspective, which is saying that is dark and that is light. Like it's
that's
just
right.
Perspective. Like the law
which
of
was
duality,
a perspective
like
that when we were originally designed, we weren't even supposed to have.
Exactly. And we realize that if you actually realize like our journey on this life is our soul throws different scenarios because it wants to come and have the human experience. It wants to grow in different elements. We realize that perhaps what we label as bad is actually the greatest thing for us. And we know this because we look back at people's journeys, like every keynote speaker, basically, like we're in a community of keynote speakers.
Yeah. Who has the craziest, worst thing that's ever happened to them?
Yeah.
It's like a competition.
Yeah. And then they look back and you say, would you do that again? And they're like, oh, I'd never give that up, because they now realize that was the catalyst. That was the
The
transformational moment.
gift.
So if we
Yes.
know that in hindsight, why not in the present when you're going through some pain? We should actually get excited and go, yes, an opportunity for growth.
Because it not only is it growth, but it becomes the gift we have to give to the 10, 20, 30 people that are about to go through it.
Yes.
Like,
definitely.
so the answer to why does it happen is that so we can turn around and be uniquely positioned, uniquely qualified to help someone when no one else can.
Definitely.
And that's the power of it in my mind.
And then that limitless drug. So I guide big breath journeys. That's part of my experience. I'll give a keynote experience and I get into the intellect, but then I want you to have a physical experience, because there's a big difference between understanding with the intellect. The ego loves to do that. They go, oh yeah, I've read that book. I've consumed this. I know, I understand it. But there's a big difference between understanding and knowing. And knowing comes through a felt experience. Once you feel something, you now don't question it. You go, oh, I know that to be true. So I guide these incredible breath journeys, and people who don't believe in spirituality, they come out of it and go, oh yeah, I now know. And then there's other things that they release, and they witness people who have crossed and all these different elements. And that there is a drug for me as well, because I'm helping people. I'm not doing it. They're doing it. They're breathing. But I'm just creating a space to help them see what is possible and realize that the limits that they've put on themselves, they're all stories. And then they become limitless. And then that, by nature, we're all connected through one mind. So when they open up, it improves me.
Yes. And it's like a collective limitlessness. And it's amazing, because that is the power of what can happen when this is unleashed at work. Is that imagine a workplace where everyone loves their weird, everyone is intentional, and everyone is coming from a place of raw authenticity, pure imagination, and this generous spirit of collaboration. At that point, you can put what I call the collective ingenuity to work. I call it imaginuity. That's actually one of my things now. Is this imaginuity is when you put the collective ingenuity to work, and what's possible is truly limitless, because inside of each one of us is a massive potential. But when a group of us are aligned in a common direction, that becomes an almost unstoppable force.
Frankie, this is why I love you, is we're speaking truth, the same content. Most of us who are speaking this are speaking truths, and we're coming from at different angles, but at the core, it's the same elements.
Because we didn't coordinate this, and that is truth. When that lines up, when two people come together and they have the same experience, same feeling, and same belief, and there's not any written thing that belief would have come from, that's how you know it's a real truth.
And then an intelligence comes through us, and we go into the unknown. And I talk about making miracles. Make your miracle. Is that we all have the ability to make your miracles. Like, we have this access to this unified field of energy. I call it the universal mind as well, where everything that ever has come from and ever will has come from. It doesn't come through from us. It comes through us. And when we're in that group environment, we start opening up this collective, and we start bouncing off each other, and things that come through that we have no idea. And this is what I love, building high performing teams. I'm like, all right, all of you are smart, but actually the real intelligence needs to come through us. And how do we create that portal for us to come through? And the making the miracles, we are making miracles every day. Like, all you have to do is pay attention. Like, I just had a matcha tea. I'm having a sip of matcha.
Okay.
Now it's going down. And think about that. It's now getting processed. It's automatically getting like processed down there, giving me energy. Then I'm going to go to the bathroom later. Like, isn't that a miracle? Like, just take a moment, take a breath in and think, I'm just breathing right now. And that just created oxygen plus glucose, gave me energy just through breath, which I can't even see. I don't know how it works. I'm not doing it. That is a miracle. But most of us aren't paying attention to all the miracles. And the more you pay attention to these miracles, you know what happens? You're able to make more miracles, because you start realizing anything is possible. If my body, like my Sydney, you love Sydney. Yesterday I heard a scream, and I was like, whoa, what's that scream? She'd chopped like a big chunk of her finger off with a peeler. Like, it got caught in the peeler. Like, she was peeling a sweet potato. And there's a big wedge. And what's amazing, we don't doubt that it's going to heal. Like, we just go, oh, let's put a Band-Aid on and let the intelligence of the finger start healing. And before you know it, She's got a perfect finger. Now, we accept that, but there's other things that we don't believe is possible. Why is it that the body can heal this, but can't heal other things? It's because we've been programmed to think that things that can't heal. And because people in power have taken away our own agency. We can heal really anything if we just get out of the way, but we have to believe it's possible.
Yeah. No, I mean, to me, that is the part that is, when you start to peel it back, because you and I are in a
Peel
similar,
it back, pun.
Yeah. Not that back. Oh, so, but when you start to look at it this way, the work for us is the business of translation, translating the truth in a way where people can understand it and use it. And
Yes.
I think that's kind of what I wanted to ask you about, just some of the stuff you've seen with the people that are out there that kind of look at what you do, and even some of the work that I do, and they're like, this is cool, it's interesting, Finnian, but like, I don't know that this is practical for work.
Yes.
Right. I know you've gotten that one. So I want you to drop into that for a minute and just kind of talk a little bit about, like, what do you say to those types of people, right? Those types of leaders that are maybe more engineering in mindset and math. And, I work with what I know and I work with what I see. And so, what made me think of this, and then you're going to go, is when you talked about the things we can't see, right? I can't see oxygen, but thank God it's there. I can't see electricity, but thank God that's happening. And, and all the other things that just because we can't see it doesn't mean that it's not real. And it changes and reframes this idea of believing in make-believe or imagination. And I do a lot of work in that space. So tell me a little bit about, how do you handle these others that are like, what? This is real California. This might fly in California, Finnian, but or Colorado, wherever you're from. But I'm from up north or the Midwest or the South. Like, what do you say to us?
So it's funny you recognize that. These people are my favorite people and end up being my greatest champions. So there's a few things. One, I don't try to attack them. I don't try to say they're wrong, because something called cognitive dissonance, we twist the information to support our beliefs. So we never go head on. But what I do is I enter through a portal of what they know. Like, I have a maths degree, a physics degree. I was a finance person. I was an army officer. So already there's some credibility. They're like, all right, this is interesting. Then what I'll do is I'll show them physics formulas of things that they think are unseen and don't exist. And I'll show, no, this is physics. And so I enter that portal. But most importantly, what I do is I want them to go through their own experience. So people sometimes have beliefs because they've labeled themselves, I'm a logical, analytical person. One, that's a lie. No one is a logical, analytical people. We are both feeling and analytical. Some people weigh a little bit more, but we're all feelings-based people. So what I do is I'll ask them questions. I'll be like, hey, have you ever had an experience where perhaps you were thinking about you need to let someone go, like a team member? For example, I'll do this with leaders. But then you back away and you undecided, and then suddenly that team member resigns. And it was like, oh, did you connect with them? Or you were thinking of someone and then suddenly they called you and they start realizing, oh, that's happened. And they realize that. And I go, well, maybe that's because we're all connected through one mind. And we're actually, in some regards, we do have the ability to communicate telepathically. So that's one idea. I also then get them, and this is the beautiful thing, my secret sauce is I don't tell them all about what we're going to do, the breath journey. I just say, oh, we're just going to breathe a little bit. And then I take them through a breath journey, and then suddenly they're feeling things. They're like, oh my God, what is this? And they're feeling, witnessing, and then they suddenly realize, well, they felt it. So that's what really matters. So I take them
so a lot of the way you get people to understand what you do is, that's what I've always liked about your work, is a lot of it's experiential, where, okay, cool, if you don't understand it, let's go ahead and try it right now, kind of thing.
Yeah. And then I also go, look, don't trust me. Just try this on. Like, I'll give them some concepts and I go, why don't you just try that? And I show them a formula. Like, I literally go, here is the formula to communicate this way. Here is the formula to start feeling. Just try these steps. and just see what happens. Like go test them out with your team.
Yeah.
Go
Don't
test
take
them
my
out
word for it.
yourself.
Just try it. If it doesn't work, you can just be like, yeah, that Finnian was full of shit.
Exactly. And I even say that. I do that exact line. I just
Yeah.
go, yeah, don't worry about me, but just try it and trust yourself. And then they all come back and go, oh, wow. I just had not been given permission to access this part of myself. I'd been blocking it and I'd never been shown how. And then what I love about them is because they are so like logic coding, they then see the formula. And then the incredible thing is they then become translators because they can go, hey, I didn't realize that there actually is a process to feel. Like there is a formula. There's a process to tap into this energetic world. It's all just physics. And they become my biggest change agents. And I get, to be honest, Frankie, I love it when people go, oh, yeah, I don't believe in any of this. And I just go, oh, wait. Ooh, little project. And I get so excited about them.
Yes, I love that. Okay, so do you do some of your stuff virtually as well?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so if like, do you mind if you like kind of give the people watching this like a little taste of like what they could do on their own, like in the present? Is that something you could do?
I'd love to.
Okay, go for it. What do you got?
So I want to bring back one of the key intentions is choose love over fear. And we think that something has to happen in order for us to experience it. But I'm just going to guide you through a little experience to realize that we have a lot more agency than what we realize. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes, Frankie, and the audience as well. And just observe, not trying to change the breath, but I just want you to observe what your breath is doing right now. How deep, how shallow, how fast, how slow, where is it? Lower abdomen, upper abdomen, just observing the breath. And then just do a little scan of your body and just see how your body is feeling right now. Is it open, tight? Is there pains, pressure, so on? Just taking that little observation. Now I want you to go to a time in your life where you felt a lot of fear. It could have been a moment where you're worried about your relationship ending. Could have been after relationship ending. Could be when your finances were at a real risk. Whatever that is, just go there right now. Just trust whatever comes forward is where you need to go. And I want you to relive that experience like it's happening right now. Bring those senses alive. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? What do you taste? What are you touching? Really relive that experience like it's happening right now. Don't see yourself go through that experience. Actually be in that experience. I know it might be unpleasant, but just sit with it for a few short moments. And now I want you to do a little check of your breath. What's happening with your breath? Has it changed? How has it changed? And then also check what sensations are happening in your body.
I've been barely breathing.
Has it got tightness? Has it controlled off? Okay, yeah, you've got that. So now, just sit with that for a little bit. And now I want you to just start breathing in and out of your nose for 5 seconds. A nice count. In, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out. 4, 3, 2, 1. Continue with that for a couple of rounds. And now I want you to go to a time in your life where you felt so much love. Could be the moment you were witnessing your child being born. It could be when you were a little child just at a birthday party, just everyone, all your friends were there. Whatever it is, don't try to pick the perfect thing. Just go there. Whatever comes first, go there now. And I want you to relive the experience like it's happening right now. Bring those senses alive. Really savor this experience. Let it wash all over you. Let those feelings, love, peace, joy, whatever it is, just wash over you right now. And now I want you to do a little scan of your body. What's happening in your body? How's it changed? And then what's happening with your breath? What's happening with your breath now? Take a few more moments of savoring that experience. And then whenever you're ready, you can come back into the room. Where'd you go, Frankie?
All over.
Yeah.
I went all over, but it was definitely, it was great to do the other side of it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So we noticed, what did you feel? You said you actually stopped breathing.
Yeah.
There was perhaps there was I noticed you constricted, like your shoulders pulled in a little bit. There was a little bit off. So without actually
So you
anything
saw that?
happening, yeah, I saw it. Yeah, I could
Interesting.
see it. Like without anything happening, like it's not like that event happened right now, Frankie,
Right.
but your
Or
body
it
couldn't
became
tell the
real again.
difference.
And I already know that event, like I've already made it through all those events, the
Yep.
negative ones that I was
You've already
afraid would
made
be
it,
the
but
end.
look what happened. Your body went back like it was happening right now. So we can see that our psychological state can change the physiological state by just imagining we exactly went into that fear-based place. And when we're in fear, like think about it, you can't make decisions when you're in fear, like conscious decisions. You stopped breathing, less energy was going in. By the nature of when we're in fear, the energy stops going from to the brain and goes to our limbs because it thinks we're at risk and it wants to run. We literally get dumber. And so many of us are living in this fear state, and we're compounding our mistakes. We're making bad decisions. And then what happened? You started regulating your breath just through some conscious breathing. We changed our psychological state through a physiological state because they're directly interrelated. And then I turbocharged it by putting you into a love-based place. And what started happening then? More relaxed, more open,
That felt
expansive.
great.
So means we are not hostage to our state. We can change anything, but we can be living in the future or the past and compounding our problems. And instead, just where are we at right now? So that's a little exercise to see the power of your imagination.
Yeah.
There is no difference between it really happening and it happening in your imagination. So be conscious about what you're connecting with. Be conscious with how you're feeling.
And how you're using your imagination. Interesting. Yeah. One way or the other, we're all using our imagination. It's how we're using it. That's
exactly.
Good. That's really good. Because I think that a lot of the work I do is this idea about how imagination is not something you learn. It's something that's been unlearned from 5-year-old. And you said permission earlier, and I wanted to double click back to that. Because a lot of the work I do is about giving people permission to live out their 5-year-old self.
Oh yeah.
And showing people the power of that version of ourselves, because that version is the version that essentially you're also helping people tap into, because it's one of the last times before we got conditioned to not be who we already are, to not be imaginative, and to live in this and be conditioned by a scarcity mindset as opposed to the abundance mindset that we had as a kid. In fact, we were so abundant that even if people weren't around, we could just create a person to have a relationship with. And it's wild because it's all interconnected to what's holding us back and keeping us from growing at work.
Totally. And you know what makes me laugh is these engineers, these logical, analytical people who don't believe this happening. What are all the companies that they're working for? They're working for SpaceX, Tesla, Boeing, like Meta, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like literally 20 years ago, they didn't exist. And what did people do? They imagined an idea. And then it came to fruition in the material realm, but it all happened through the unseen world first. It all started imagination. It all started in the quantum world. And then something we accept as real now, at some point, was an imagination. It was all imagination.
Even people that work like in something as like rudimentary as the oil field, you know, or something like old school, still someone had to imagine how you would get the oil and then what you would do with it. So even in going back that far, like there's no industry that's untouched by what we're talking about.
Exactly.
Meaning that like it all started from some imagination.
Yes, and some person said that doesn't exist, that couldn't be possible, it's crazy at that time. And now we take it for granted because it's become familiar, because it's been coded into us. So this is where, like when people use science, I just laugh. I just go, look, science is always lacking. Like someone had to have even the idea to prove that.
Right.
Someone had to vision that was even something they could prove. So it's always behind. And eventually, as you go, like people talk about, I bridge science and spirituality. Even that is a lie. Like science and spirituality are one. Like it's the exact same thing. But
Yes.
we create this view of separation, and that's where all the challenges of the world goes from. We create separation rather than realizing we're all connected. And we realize through this that, all right, perhaps once again, something that I said wasn't possible, maybe it could be possible. And that's all I want people to do is, where are the self limits that you're putting on yourself? Like, where are you capping yourself? Because you have no idea how good life can be. And one of the saddest things when I hear people say, oh, that's just the way I'm wired, or people don't change, I go, oh, listen to that language, wired. It's coding. Like, that's literally, it is. Like, if anything, we've seen enough through our own personal transformation.
Yeah, hardware
Everything
can be rewired and software can be refactored.
Yes.
And upgraded.
Yeah, and Frankie, as you know, because we're living that life now, and I keep getting more of this, is we have no idea how good this life can be. It's unlimited. Right. It's love is just completely open. You notice the difference. Fear is constrained. Love is open. It's expansive.
That's it. It's incredible, man. And I love the work that you're doing and the hard work of translating it for the work world, because it would be much easier to just stay out of that space.
Totally. And some days I bang my head up against a brick wall and it's hard.
Well, because we're going up against a massive force.
Yes.
Of the status quo.
Yes.
Of the system.
Yeah.
And we are the, I don't know, Avengers, maybe. I don't know if we're to the Avenger level yet, but we're not a big group of people going up against a very large force. And what I love about the work, how I met you and a lot of the people that have come together with like Impact 11, the best thing about Impact 11 has been finding more of the Avengers that we're all in the same exact calling.
Yeah.
And that calling is to go inside the capitalistic machine and show the people that pray to the god of money, and that's kind of the religion of choice, I think, now for America is, capitalism, and the god they pray to is money. But I think our work is to show them that they can have that without all of the dead bodies behind them.
Exactly. And Frankie,
and that's the beauty of it.
You just translated that so beautifully. Like, my publisher is Hay House. Like, it's a lot easier. If I speak at a Hay House conference, it's the easiest thing ever. Everyone's already bought in. They're just like, yes, lap it up. Like, it's amazing. They're incredible people. And I could easily stay in that space, like working with people who are bought in. But because of my unique experience, like, I look at my life and it was a very conventional life, like military, science, maths, like I've finance, I've capitalism, I've gone through that phase, and I realized, I saw the truth. And I then went, well, it's my obligation to go through this. And these people want it, they just don't know it yet. And they don't know any other opportunity. And capitalism is so funny because in its truest form, capitalism is all about free flowing. But look at the modern day world, it's all about storing. It's about me, mine. And that's not capitalism. So what we literally confuse with capitalism, like that's not true.
Exactly.
And you're right. And we can show, the problem was that the previous guard were saying you have to like give up this in order to have this. And it was all about like repenting, releasing all your possessions, going up on a hill. And that just doesn't work for this group of people. They're not going to like give up. Like, we have to go, how can you add more? They've bought into more, so we need to just play on the more. You can have this and this.
Right.
As long as you change.
Because what happens is that, at the end of the day, because even the old God, as you referenced, like, you could have it both.
Yeah.
He just said it wasn't easy.
Yes.
And so what I've come to realize, because I've gone back and forth on that, and I've accumulated some amazing things in the physical world as a result of it. But I grew up in helping homeless people, and so had very little. And so I've seen it both ways. And what I've come to realize is that the important part has nothing to do with the physical world. Like, the physical world can be whatever you want it to be. And you can have whatever you want it to be. In fact, you can have more of it, to your point. You can have all of the riches in the world by following what we're talking about.
Exactly.
And even though, like, if that's what you're into.
Yeah.
And if you're not into riches in the physical sense, that's okay too.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, the thing about it is not only can you have your money and not have dead bodies, but it actually is the thing that will give you more money.
Yeah, and
and not dead bodies.
It'll give
by
you more
by
money.
choosing the same type of work out of love versus fear.
Yes, that's our whole thing. We talk about the ladder of the ladder of abstraction, and the idea, what does it all grow up to? And let's face it, like every single corporate speech is, how do we get more out of less? How do we make more money? And so we have to be positioning that. And that's what we're actually doing, is like, oh no, you can actually use this to get more of what you want, but that doesn't mean it's a cost to anyone else. Like, everyone can win through this experience.
Right.
You can,
and I think that's the beautiful part, is that it doesn't have to be at other people's expense.
Yeah. Which
it's beautiful. Well, Finnian, we could probably do this all week, but for the sake of the listeners, probably, we're kind of bumping on time. What's the best way for people to explore what you're doing? Obviously the book. Now we can buy it, which is awesome. Buy the book, Intentionality by Finnian. And Finnian, what's your last name? You didn't put it on the screen, but
Finnian Kelly.
Finnian Kelly. There you go.
I'm trying to be like Madonna.
FinnianKelly.com?
Frankie, I'm trying to be like Madonna, just Finnian. Just
yeah. That's fine. Just Google Finnian and Intentionality. I'm sure it'll come up. But what's the website? FinnianKelly.com?
So the best website is actually Intentionality.com. There's FinnianKelly.com as well. But Intentionality, you'll be able to get the book. And what I would really love is, I want people to start breathing. And that's where we get the change. So there's an app which there you can
saw that. Is that what the app helps with?
Yeah. The app has all the breath exercises, has all the tools of how to actually apply this into your life. And it's just a great starting point.
I love that. And the app's on like the app stores and all that?
Yeah, both of them. Just Intentionality. I own the word Intentionality. So if you look that up, you'll find it.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much. It has been more than I even expected today. And I loved the exercise we did. What a powerful thing. I'm feeling great. So hopefully everybody else is, if you didn't, rewind this real quick and actually try the exercise that we were doing. But what a gift. Thank you so much for being on the show, Finnian.
Frankie, this was a pleasure. I think we should do a 10-hour podcast one time, and let's see where we go.
All right, good. Well, hopefully, now you're having the baby. Am I going to see you in Detroit?
I'm not going to go into Detroit this one.
Okay. You got to do what you got to do, but hopefully I'll see you later this year, not virtual.
Definitely. Appreciate it.
But we'll connect. We're always connected energy wise.
Definitely.
Clearly. Direct connection. All right. For those of you who've been listening, thank you so much for listening and watching. This has been another episode of the School of Weird podcast. Until next time, see you soon.